Hello, my name is John Lester, and today I'm going to give a brief overview of the new EHR that we developed here at the Cell Service Unit. Standard fare here. This is your normal logon screen. This is a little bit bigger to kind of help capture the information for just logging on and doing this video. But you do your normal process here where you would log on. Pick your appropriate location. And we go on from there. So don't worry about that issue. It's something we're working on, but here is the new EHR GUI. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and pick a patient as you normally would. Close that out, and I'm going to pick or make a visit. And normally this is something that's already in place for you. You don't have to worry about this, but just realize that you do have to look for that. And always double check to make sure your name is in this box. Don't assume that it's up here just because your name appears. I would always invite you to go up to that visit box and make sure your name is in there, and if it's not, make sure it is. And if you're changing shifts, I would actually recommend that you work with the person that is replacing you, and also add their name and make them red, which makes them the primary provider for that visit. If you don't and you leave and they take over, you will be still left as the primary provider for that visit, and you will get the notifications associated with that. So anyways, so moving from here, as you can see, the EHR has changed significantly. But please keep in mind that all the changes are really cosmetic. Everything has just been really organized differently to allow a different feel on how things work. So just really kind of pay attention to that piece of it. Now, the first thing we're going to start off with is kind of this top bar and what's on here. As you can see, you just have your privacy patient chart. This is where you must click in order to enter any information down here in the patient's record. There's a review tab where we keep some quick information. This is what the providers here said that they found most useful instead of that really big cover sheet that we used to have. This is what we have now. And you give your alerts, if there's any pending alerts, lab orders, they'll show up here. You can add, by right-clicking in here, you can see and add your allergies and read what some more appropriate information on them if you need, and a list of appointments. At the very bottom, this is the Immunization Forecaster. Really, the only reason why it's here is the providers felt that they like to see what is being forecasted and what contraindications are for immunizations, but they really don't enter it, so it didn't need to be that big. So that's the review tab. Now, adjacent to that, you can see up here we have, these are probably the areas you're going to primarily stay in. I don't think for ER you'd be going into any of these other areas, but realize this is your referrals, discharges, and other, which is your web incidents, suicide forms, trainings, etc. But the main thing here is your resource tab. This resource tab allows you to access things like UpToDate, the clinical staff web, any kind of medication electronic format that we kind of had. The nice thing about this is when you launch it, it makes a separate window, where before, if you guys remember, there was like a resource tab and you always had to flip back and forth. What this does is make another window that you can do your searching, but you can still look at your GUI, so it doesn't interfere with that. Again, we try to make this very fluent for the provider, able to hop around as much as possible without interfering with the experience. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and close that for right now. So that we talked about resources, that's an important piece. You have your main bar, as you probably remember with before. Here's where you're doing your meaningful use type stuff. I don't believe you guys use this, but this is where your point of care, MedRec worksheets come out, your postings, and your clinical reminders, anything that the patients do for. This is one big piece that you kind of need to pay attention to. From now on, whenever you pick a visit that has a little window piece right there, you can go up here and just click it, and it should pull up the service for you. And mine's erroring out right now, but you get the idea. It would launch the service, and you'd be able to see your like x-rays, etc. So, moving on from there, we have now the main bar here, and you have these launching buttons. The main launching buttons that you really have to pay attention to are your colored ones, of course. Here's your first one, which is your notifications. Pre-visit. Pre-visit was designed by the physicians as things, again, they wanted to see right before they see a patient. This one will fill up with all the triage-related information, vitals, educations, exams, anything the nurse does will populate here. You have a quick view on your vitals. If you double-click on that box, you can get a graphable option, and of course you can see your visits here. Again, the immunization record was brought into this area as the providers wanted to kind of see it a little bit better before moving on. Your IPL, as you know before, has been given more space, but this is where you can add all your information. When you do add something and make it a purpose of visit for today, which I'll bring here, it will become a check mark, and that lets you know that you picked a purpose of visit. Of course, as everybody knows, there are progress notes. This is where you do your normal progress notes in labs, meds, orders, consults, reports. When you get over to here, POV, this is your last kind of area that you can see, did you actually pick a purpose of visit for that day? That can be helpful. Your E&M codes, if you use them, your emergency services, just remember when you get to this box, this is the important piece right here. Whatever you've done over here, if you've actually entered in an E&M code for today, it'll populate here. If this is empty, you haven't done it. You might think you did, but you haven't. If you are interested in any wellness-related stuff, growth charts, reminder educations associated with that, reproductive factors, TB screening, this is all done on the wellness tab. IRX, anticoagulation goals is another area. Now, the catch-all area is this buttons. The reason why this buttons is here is to be able to facilitate the use of these launchers, which I'll show here in a minute. But this is kind of your grab bag of all the different other types of things that we have going on in EHR. So if you can't find something, I always invite that you can always go to this area, and it may have what you're looking for. Okay. Now, you might ask, well, what is this buttons area for? Well, what we've encountered in the past is that providers like to sometimes be able to read an old note, but they get kind of, when you start a note or you're looking at something, if you flip to another page, you can't see what you're looking at. So what these kind of did was offer you a chance to be able to launch one of the other objects while you're looking at something else. Now, unfortunately, when this object is launched, you are locked out of the rest of the EHR until you close it, and then you're free to move around. But what providers have found that they really, really like about that is they can go to an area that they're wanting to read up on and say, oh, I really want to look at this. Or, you know what, meds, oh, I forgot I need to order meds based on my notes, and you can launch this, and this will actually function like the meds management window, but still be able to look back and see what's going on with your progress notes. Again, it's locked up when you have those windows open. So if you ever run into a problem that this is all locked, you probably have your secondary window open somehow. Again, more of those launching windows. You can be pretty much anywhere you are. Again, look at where I usually see this used the most is, again, on like progress notes, and they'll launch the IPL or the meds to add something or document something that they wrote down in their note, etc. But that's all these little buttons do. These buttons exist on the EHR under either a tab or this buttons area. But they're just a convenient way to launch it while looking at something else, whatever that may be. If you want to be at labs and say, oh, I want to order some labs, you want to order some labs, you can go here and say, oh, well, I need to order some labs. Let me get the order dialog and say boom, 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 and see what came across, or vice versa. And I think that's it. The other cool thing is you do have this, that's chief complaint, my apologies. You do have this COM. Again, another issue I've heard is some people are talking to somebody about something, and they can't look at what their EHR was doing. You can now type here. Let's say I want to talk to this Blaine person. Right, and oh wait, I need to move something and look at something real quick, and now I'm going to go back to my COM feature. Where I left off, till I hit send, it's still here. The object exists in here at the same time you're using it, so there's a lot of things you can kind of be doing, going back and forth to objects as you need it, but this allows you to look around, add a little bit more whatever you're telling them, and move on. Now again, if your GUI seems to get stuck, that usually means you have a hidden window. I know, I believe it's Control F4, if I'm not mistaken, closes Windows, but worst case scenario, shut down your EHR or relaunch it and you should be fine. I've also seen Cascade Windows makes the EHR do some pretty interesting things, but I've also seen that kind of pull up people's windows that they're looking for if it's not working right. And let me move this back. Now the one thing I will point out, the GUI is a lot more flexible than it has been in the past. I've seen people adjust the size of it to whatever fits their preferences, and it kind of be okay with it, a lot better than in the past with other options. It does maximize and minimize quite well, so I invite you to do that again. You shouldn't get a bunch of dead space like in some of the older versions. And if you do come across anything that doesn't seem to be working, please notify Clinical Informatics, and we will take a look at that with the providers and see if there's anything we can or can't do. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I truly hope your experience with the new GUI is very positive. Have a nice day.